above all things, verse 14, put on charity, and some translations say love, which is the bond of perfectness. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also you're called in one body, and be ye thankful. That relationship with God. And we've talked about that before. God speaks to us through His Word, and then how do we speak to Him? Through prayer. So He says, let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also you're called in one body, and be ye thankful. And He gets into verse 16, how it is that we do that. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And I know a lot of times we look at Colossians 3:16, and that's one of our verses we go to and say, see, that's why we sing and only sing. There's so much more in that verse besides the word sing. It says what it says about singing, and the reason we do that, and why we sing with grace in our hearts to the Lord. But go back to the first line of the verse. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom. So yeah, he's talking about teaching and admonishing one another in song. And we ought to be doing that. In other words, when we sing, we're not just going through the motions so we can get on to the preaching, so we can get on to lunch. That's not why we're doing that. But this whole section here is focused on that idea. Let the word of Christ dwell in you. And that goes all the way back to the beginning of the chapter. That's how you're going to set your affection on things above. If you're risen with Christ, seek those things which are above. Set your affection on things above. How do we do that? Verse 16, let the word of Christ dwell in you.